Why is it so quiet out there? Spooky, man. Well, one of my mentors as a novelist, I do write them their novels, you know, and one of my mentors was the great Elmer Kelton from Texas. Elmer he was born on a ranch, grew up on a ranch. He's a World War II vet. He's all around a great man. And I would do book signings when I was first started writing books. Do book signings with Elmer, and I always loved that because Elmer drew a huge crowd. You know, they'd line up around the bookstore when you're doing the book signing, and I was kind of the new guy, but I would sit there with Elmer, and he allowed me to do this, you know, trying to help me out. And people would come in, so they might have 5 or 6 Elmer Kelton books, and that they'd had for years, and they want him to sign every one of them, and so he did very patiently, and they would look at me kind of sitting there all pitiful like, and they'd go, "Oh, we'll take your book too," you know. So Elmer's great. He was a great mentor. And we did a book signing. One time we did a book signing where there was a lot of other stuff going on, and even Elmer didn't draw you know, such a big crowd. And there's just about the size of this. This is a quality crowd, though. See, it's quality, not quantity. But Elmer looked at the crowd, because he always gave a little speech, talked about his latest book and that sort of thing. And he said, "Well, you know, my old daddy out on the ranch, my old daddy always told me that if you go to feed the cows and not all the cows show up, you still got to feed the cows that show up. So thank y'all for showing up." That's right. We ran through this one in sound check, Jim. This is y'all know Jim. You know, of course, Donnie, who's a fixture here. I thought he was going to be here. I had my years mixed up. He was with me last year, and Don Richmond he's with the Rifters tonight, and so Brother Jim just happens to be in town, although he lives in Texas. And so, thank you for being here for me and backing me up, Jim.
It's a treat for me.
All right.
All right.
And we ran through this in sound check, and so you're going to be amazed because we've never played a gig together, and Jim hasn't, you know, even heard a whole lot of my songs, and he dang sure hasn't rehearsed them. But we speak the same language as musicians, and he can see where my chords are, and he's just another musical genius like Donnie is, and so we'll get along just fine. He'll see. All right, well, here we are in paradise, you know, Alamosa, Colorado, and I feel like this is a little slice of paradise up here. And I got this here song. The name of the song is A Town Called Paradise. And I wrote this song with a fan who's a friend of mine, and his name is Dr. Ken Garrett. And Dr. Ken Garrett he's a radiologist, and he's so good at reading x-rays that he can work from home, and people send him x-rays from all over the world, you know, through the electric internet. And he looks at them and tells people what to do. So he had this. He kept coming up with these ideas for songs, and Dr. Ken Garrett's not you have a certain image in your mind about a doctor. You know, he's probably wearing a suit and he plays golf, and Dr. Ken doesn't do that. He rides Harleys, and he's kind of got long hair, and he's a big, huge music fan. And he'd come see me play here and there, and he's always pitching me these song ideas because he had written a song with my buddy John Arthur Martinez, and he got the songwriting bug. So he always pitched me these ideas, and I'd just tell him, "Doc, that's one of the corniest ideas I've ever heard. We can't do that, you know." And he'd just laugh it off. But finally, he came up with this idea right here, A Town Called Paradise. And it's a song about if you've ever been stuck in a big city. I mean, right out of high school, I joined the military, and so I was in cities. I was a country boy, so any city was a big city to me. And then I went to college, you know, and it was in Austin, Texas, and that to me was a big city. In fact, I remember in Austin one time, I got so, you know, just kind of feeling claustrophobic because I'd been in the city too long, and I skipped class, and I got in my pickup truck, and I'm going to drive outside the city limits out into the hill country of Texas. And so I did. And I came to a place where somebody had run over a skunk in the road. And I got a good whiff of that skunk, and I thought, that makes me homesick. So, if you've ever been in that position, this is about going to a place like Alamosa or outside of Fredericksburg, Texas, where I live. I live down 1.5 miles of gravel road, and it has occurred to me that most of my life I've lived down 1 mile or 1.5 miles of gravel road. That's the way I grew up, and that's just the places that draw me to them. So Dr. Ken and I wrote this song about getting out of the big city and moving to a quieter, more wholesome place. And he lived in Dallas at the time, the good doctor did. And he took this song to heart. He left Dallas and moved to Granite Shoals, Texas. And do y'all know where Granite Shoals is? Probably, well, maybe most of you don't, because it's such a puny little town. He got out of the big city. He took this song to heart. You know, just shows you music changes people's lives when you write it, when you hear it. And sometimes you end up living it. So here we have this song, A Town Called Paradise. I can read it on your face. You've had it with this place. You're sick and tired of the rat race. Honey, I am too. Traffic jams and deadlines, crime waving a headline, smog choking the sunshine. Tell you what, let's do. We'll find a place somewhere with some clear, fresh air, and we'll roll like a pair of dice. Honey, just me and you. We'll look up at the stars at night, far from the big city lights, in a town called Paradise. Population 2. What would we have to give up? I can deal with a pay cut. Let's get out of this death rut, honey, while we still can. Say goodbye to the concrete. Find a turn off this one-way dead-end street. Let's get some grass under our feet. I'm not afraid to get a little dirt on my hand. We'll find a place somewhere with some clear, fresh air. We'll roll like a pair of dice. Honey, just me and you. We'll look up at the stars at night, far from the big city lights, in a town called Paradise. Population 2. Give it up for Jim right there on the guitar. We need a wide open view of the western sky. We'll lose these big city blues, honey, just you and I. The pretty smile on your face tells me you love our new place, far away from the rat race. Honey, I love it too. Darling, don't ever think twice. I would make every sacrifice to remain here in paradise. Population 2. We found a place somewhere with some clear, fresh air, and we rolled like a pair of dice. Honey, just me and you. Now we look up at the stars at night, far from the big city lights, in a town called Paradise. Population 2, yeah. A town called Paradise. Population 2. Just me and you, baby. Here we are in paradise. Beautiful. Well, I got a new album out, released about a month or so ago, I guess. And it's called Gemstone. And here's a song off the new album called The Twist. And I got a friend, his name is Damon Rogers, and Damon and I write songs together. And Damon's a sure enough full-time working cowboy, horse trainer, horse breaker. I mean, he ropes bulls for the PBR rodeos, and he's the guy that if you've got some wild bull that jumped the fence and that bull's in your pasture and the bull won't leave, you call Damon and he'll come rope it. He may bring another cowboy with him to get 2 ropes on him, but he'll get the rope out. He'll get the bull out of your pasture. He don't scare that easy. Damon and I got bucked off of the same horse one time. Not at the same time, it was 2 different rides, but I had a little trouble with this mare I was trying to break, and Damon came and helped me, and we became friends and started writing songs. And so we had a songwriters retreat at our house, and Damon came, he said, with one idea. He said, I'm bringing the idea. I don't have a tune. I don't have any words except these 2 words. Maybe it's the title, but it's The Twist. I said, okay. So we had some really good songwriters hanging out at our house for the weekend, and one of them was Ricardo. His name is Richard Dobson, but everybody called him Ricardo. You may not have heard of Richard Dobson. Oh, yeah. You know Ricardo? Yeah. All right. Yeah, he was a hell of a guy and a great songwriter. He was such a good songwriter that Guy Clark recorded 2 of his songs, and Guy Clark doesn't record many other people's songs. He and Guy were friends. Ricardo was friends with Townes Van Zandt, and it goes on and on. He's one of those Texans that moved to Nashville to try to save country music, back in the late 60s, early 70s. And he was also an outdoorsy kind of guy, and he worked on oil rigs and the shrimp boats and things like that. And he ended up marrying a Swiss woman, this beautiful woman who's still a friend of ours. And he lived in Switzerland the last years of his, the last 20 or 25 years of his life. But he would come home to Texas every year, and also Nashville, and he'd play some music in the United States. And I met him in Switzerland, actually, and we became friends. And he would come to my ranch in Texas and hunt deer because he was a deer hunter, and we'd go fishing together and write songs together. He's just a great guy. And so he was at the songwriters retreat, and my other friend Damon had this idea, The Twist. And I saw that Ricardo on a piece of paper had signed up to write this song with Damon. And so I said, Mike Blakely. And I said, nobody else is writing this with us. And about 9 o'clock in the morning, and we'd been up late the night before because nobody had to drive home, so we were in a good frame of mind. Very creative, a very creative frame of mind. And we just locked ourselves in one of the rooms in my house and started writing. We came up with a song called The Twist. Sometimes when you're writing with like 2 other guys in this situation, all of a sudden it seems like there's a 4th person in the room who's smarter than all of us put together. That energy among co-writers, it creates some kind of new creative energy, and that's what happened on this one. I'm still trying to figure out what the song's about. I think I've almost got it figured. So the great Ricardo Dobson wrote this with Damon and I, and he passed away a few months later. And this was the last song he wrote or co-wrote with anybody, The Twist. When I was lost out in the mist, I made my hand into a fist. I added one more to my list. Therein lies the twist. That same old road threw me a curve. I guess we all get what we deserve. I knew the way until we kissed. Therein lies the twist. Therein lies the twist of the knife. What saves your soul could cost your life. That devil's deal is hard to resist. Therein lies the twist. Oh yeah. As you sow, so shall you reap. What you grow is yours to keep. My aim was true, somehow I missed. Blame it on the twist. Therein lies the twist of the knife. What saves your soul could cost your life. That devil's deal is hard to resist. Therein lies the twist. When I was lost out in the mist, I made my hand into a fist. I added one more to my list. Blame it on the twist. It's all in the twist. Therein lies the twist. Jim Richmond. Thank you, Ricardo.
Yeah.
That's kind of a spooky tone to it. Let's see if we can do something a little less ominous. So this next song it's called "Let 'Em Dance Around Us." And if there's a dance floor in here, you can dance right there if you want to. Wouldn't hurt my feelings. The song is all about dancing. And I wrote this song because my band, I had a dance hall band back in the day, and we played Lukenbach a lot. We played the Lukenbach New Year's Eve 5 years in a row, and during one of those shows, we were playing "The Good Old Boys Ride Brim to Brim from the Ranch to the Rodeo." I'll play that later, but we were playing one of those upbeat cowboy songs. And the cowboys were whirling the cowgirls around. There was just, it's like a redneck mosh pit down there, you know. And right in the middle of all that counterclockwise movement was this one couple right in the middle of the floor. And they were just letting the chaos go all around them. And they were just real close, like cheek to cheek, Jim. I mean, these cheeks up here, I don't want you to get the wrong visual. It was just cheek to cheek and just minding their own business, letting the chaos go on around them. And I thought about them the next morning, and I woke up New Year's Day and wrote this song for those people. I wish I had met them, but I don't know who they were, but they were inspirational. This is called Let 'Em Dance Around Us, but during COVID, we called it Let 'Em Dance 6 Feet Away From Us. But I think we're back to Let 'Em Dance Around Us now. 1, 2, 3. It's Friday night and the place is hopping, baby. The band's tight and they're hillbilly rocking it so fast and loud, playing for the party crowd. It's you and me are in our own little world now. We're cheek to cheek and we're boy to girl feeling A+. Let 'em dance around us. It's just a love song to me and you. When everyone is dancing like a wrecking crew, we're in no rush. Let 'em dance around us. It's just a slow dance. It's what we need when everything is whirling at breakneck speed. We ignore the fuss. Let 'em dance around us. Let 'em dance around us. Later on after bell buckles shining, baby, we're all alone and we're still feeling fine enough all night long. Rolling to a love song with a tune in our ears ringing, baby. We see the moon and little birds are singing in the stardust. Hey, we let 'em dance around us. It's just a love song to me and you. When everyone is dancing like a wrecking crew, we're in no rush. Let 'em dance around us. It's just a love song. It's what we need when everything is whirling at breakneck speed. We ignore the fuss. Let 'em dance around us. It's just a love song to me and everyone is dancing like a wrecking crew. We're in no rush. Let 'em dance around us. It's just a love song. It's what we need when everything is whirling at breakneck speed. We ignore the fuss. Let 'em dance around us. Let 'em dance around us. Let 'em dance around us. let them dance around us. That's mighty fine, Jim.
Oh, mighty fine song.
You've been playing that song forever, sounds like. Well, I can't come to Alamosa without playing a few bittersweet cowboy songs. We're being watched by people from all over the world, I think. We're being live streaming. So I'll say hi to all the folks who are watching out there in the good old electric internet. Howdy. So I'm going to play y'all some bittersweet cowboy songs. Some are more bitter than sweet. Some are more sweet than bitter. I'm pretty big on the bittersweet cowboy song charts. I invented the charts myself, therefore I'm number one sometimes. Pardon?
That guitar work?
I bet it would. You want to do that? We'll do one that'll work.
Sounds a little different.
Yeah, we're gonna play. Jim wants to grab another guitar here. Cowboy songs. They used to play with these gut string guitars. You know, nowadays it's nylon strings instead of a cat gut. But it still sounds the same way. And that's what they didn't have steel strings in cowboy music back in the 1800s. You know? So we'll do this old traditional cowboy song. One of my novels I wrote early on was my main character was a drifting cowboy musician, and I chose to write about that kind of character because as a drifter who played music, he drifted all over the West and he got in and out of all kind of trouble. So I learned a bunch of real authentic Old West and cowboy songs so I could have my character play in these songs and use some of the lyrics in the book and that sort of thing. Here's my favorite one that I learned. And it's called the Colorado Trail, and we're in Colorado. It's been recorded many times, like Sons of the Pioneers did it and a lot of other folks. And there's a story behind this song, and since I have such a quality audience here of intellectuals, I'm going to tell you the story about why this song survived when so many cowboy songs almost definitely just disappeared, you know. In 1929 in Duluth, Minnesota, there was a doctor walking through his hospital, and he heard this old raspy and yet beautiful voice singing this song somewhere in the hospital. And this doctor was musically inclined. He could write music, he could read music, he played the piano. And he decided to follow his ears, and he found this old timer, this old cowboy, who had gotten bucked off of his horse out. You know, he was an old timer, but he still was trying to cowboy and do a little ranching outside of Duluth there. And he was singing, he was in traction because he got bucked off his horse and his leg was broken. He was singing to the other patients, and they loved his old cowboy songs, especially this one, the Colorado Trail. And the doctor had a chance to ask the old cowboy, you know, what's the story behind this song? I've never heard this before. And the old cowboy said, well, son, you know, I grew up here in Duluth, but at a young age I moved off to Colorado. That's my cowboy voice when I tell the story. And he said, you know, out there on the trail, every day we just make songs up. And whatever happened that day, we'd put it in the song, try to make it rhyme. He said, this here song's got 150 verses. I can't remember but 4 of them. So he would sing those 4 verses, and the doctor wrote down the lyrics to those 4 verses and wrote down the musical notes so that the melody would be preserved. Other than, if it wasn't for that, the song would have drifted away on the prairie winds, most likely. It's called the Colorado Trail. Ride through the lonely night, ride through the day. Keep the herd moving, moving on its way. Weep all ye little rains, wail winds wail. eyes like the morning star, cheeks like a rose. Laura was a pretty girl, God Almighty knows. Weep all ye little rains, wail winds wail. All along, along, along the Colorado Trail. Take a ride on that trail. Jim can cowboy up, can he? Go to D-Dog. Ride through the stormy night, dark is the sky. Wish I'd stayed in Abilene, warm and safe and dry. Weep all ye little rains, wail winds wail. All along, along, along the Colorado Trail. All along, along, along the Colorado Trail. That was nice, Jim. More bittersweet cowboy songs. This one I wrote about also from my research in these books that I write. I ran across this character named Charlie Siringo, a real person from the Old West. And I first paid a lot, he kind of rang a bell with me because he grew up where I grew up on the Texas coast, south of where Houston is now. He grew up there in the 1860s and 70s as a kid. Started cowboying at a very young age as a teenager. And he started going up and down the Chisholm Trail like at 15 years old. And for 15 years, he was a cowboy in Texas, and he also went up the trail, a lot of the different cattle trails, herding the longhorns up north to market. And sometimes he'd go more than once a year, like 2 trail drives or 3 trail drives a year. So he became a very experienced young man, and he did this for 15 years, and he decided maybe he needed to grow up a little bit and get another occupation. So he settled down into Kansas, and Charlie Siringo bought a store there in Kansas, and he ran his little general store for about 3 years, and it just bored the tar out of him, He just got really, he missed his cowboy ways and got to thinking maybe he needed to go back and, be a cowboy again. But then a carnival came to town, in this little town in Kansas, and back then the carnivals would carry with them, palm readers and gypsies with the glass balls and look to read your fortune, looking into the glass. And they also would bring along a character called a phrenologist. Anybody know what a phrenologist is? Yeah, all right, we got a few educated people here.
Yeah.
A phrenologist they'll read the bumps on your skull. Like a palm reader reads your palm. They'd feel all the knots on your head and figure out what you're all about. So Charlie, for probably like a nickel or something like that, got his skull read by the phrenologist, who told him that he was perfectly suited in every way to be a detective. And he liked the thought of that rather than running that store. So he sold his store on the advice of a phrenologist. And he rode his horse to Chicago, from Kansas to Chicago. He just rode up there. Why Chicago? Well, because Chicago was the city where the Pinkerton Detective Agency had their headquarters. It was the largest private detective agency in the world at the time. And he badgered the Pinkerton brothers like every day to give him a job. And they said, "Get out of here, cowboy. Go back to Texas or wherever you're from." But he just kept bothering him, and so they finally gave him a job to get him out of town, you know. And he turned out to be one of their best detectives. He could infiltrate these outlaw gangs out west because he knew how they rode and what they lived on and how to hunt and live and survive. And he would join the outlaw gang, and then he'd set up what we now call a sting. And the Pinkertons would come in there and make some arrests. And so Charlie's dream came true. He became a detective for 22 years. And then he wrote more books about his Wild West experiences. You can still get them on Amazon or places like that. A lot of Wild West stories. I read all those books, and I wrote this here story about Charlie's life. Oh, Charlie Siringo was just 19 years old in 1875. Hell-bent on pushing his luck with them longhorns up north on the Chisholm Trail Drive. He told his dear mother he'd promised to squander no wages on women and wine. But Charlie Siringo should never have made no big promises he couldn't mind. Now Charlie spent 15 long years on the hurricane deck of a Spanish cayuse, till the boss found out barbed wire worked cheaper than Charlie, and up and cut old Charlie loose. He drifted to Kansas and tended a store, but 3 years was more than he could stand. So Charlie Siringo rode up to Chicago and became a Pinkerton man. Yes, he did. And Charlie Siringo, he loved a fandango. No one can argue with that. He'd ride in a minute for the pure glory in it, and he'd fight at the drop of a hat. That wild Texas gringo, Charlie Siringo, rounded him up mighty fine, mighty fine. And I am a friend of old Charlie Siringo. Charlie's an old friend of mine. Well, Charlie Siringo rode down through Durango, summer of 1899. Hot on the trail of some bad desperados wanted over the Wyoming line. The hole in the wall gang had blowed up a pay train.